Good morning. I'm the Reverend Molly Housh Gordon, minister of this beautiful congregation. I am a white woman with long red hair on one side and very short red hair on the other. Today I am wearing my most fabulous attire, which is a sequin-covered pantsuit and rainbow sneakers. And I welcome you to this morning's Flower Communion Centennial service, as well as the first Sunday of Pride Month. We are all decked out today.
And I'm Jamila Batchelder, our Director of Religious Education, a middle-aged white woman with long dark blonde hair and my most over-the-top dress that is, I'm going to say, a watermelon pink full skirt with embroidery on it.
And our opening words for our flower ceremony this morning are by Thomas Rhodes. We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes.
Some of us grow in bunches.
Some of us grow alone.
Some of us are cupped inward.
And some of us spread ourselves out wide.
Some of us are old and dried and tougher than we appear.
Some of us are still in bud.
Some of us grow low to the ground.
And some of us stretch toward the sun.
Some of us feel like weeds sometimes.
Some of us carry seeds sometimes.
Some of us are prickly sometimes.
Some of us smell.
All of us are beautiful.
What a bouquet of people we are. Good morning. As this morning we celebrate our annual flower ceremony service, which has been a part of our Unitarian Universalist heritage since it was created 100 years ago in 1923 by Czech Unitarian minister Norbert Capek, who wished to create a ritual that would bind people more closely together across their many different backgrounds. Our flower ceremony is a ritual of celebration and community, but it is also a symbol of radical hope, that even in the face of every fear and division, we will always continue to find beauty and worth in our differences and in our shared commitment to the practice of a fierce and growing love. We will now share the story of the flower communion, and in the places where there is a description of a video in your order of service this morning, we will unfortunately be going analog instead due to technical difficulties. But it's not so unfortunate because Jamila is a wonderful storyteller and will now tell us the story of the flower communion.
I am now a middle-aged woman in glasses. The story of the flower communion begins in Prague, Czechoslovakia, in June of 1923, with a Unitarian minister named Norbert Capek. The city of Prague was in turmoil as it tried to recover from World War I. Czechs had traditionally been staunch supporters of religious freedom, but during many years of German rule, they had been forced to practice Catholicism. The people of Prague, embracing their new freedom, were trying to rebuild their community. But they were faced with widespread hunger and were lacking necessities such as warm clothes. Reverend Capek was the minister of a new and growing Unitarian church in town. He was known for his uplifting hymns and welcoming community. Capek knew that during these hard times, people needed something even more special. He wanted a religious ritual that would bind his diverse community of people together in hope and care. He knew the traditional communion service of the local Catholic Church would not be comforting to many of his parishioners, some of whom had felt let down by what they saw as corruption in powerful Catholic leadership. But what kind of ritual would work? What kind of ritual could he create to help this community, healing the wounds and unifying the people? Reverend Capek looked to the beauty of nature to find a solution. For this special ritual, he asked everyone to bring a flower to church. It could be from a cultivated garden, or it could be a wildflower from the side of the road. Even a twig and leaf would be fine. As people entered their church, the beautiful flowers were collected in a large vase. Women in the congregation arranged all the flowers into a beautiful bouquet. At a special point in the service, the children brought forward the truly spectacular bouquet. The flowers were consecrated with prayers and hymns written by Reverend Capek. At the end of the service, everyone was invited to take home a flower, but they were to take home a different flower from the one they brought. And they were to take flowers just as they came, without regard for where they came from or who had brought them. This was the first service of what came to be called the Flower Communion. Reverend Capek wanted the diverse flowers in his communion service to symbolize people. The many different flowers can make a beautiful bouquet, and many different people can make a community. All have value, and all are important. The service was very successful, touching many people deeply. It became a church tradition. This story also has a sad part. Hitler's troops began to occupy Prague in 1939, and by 1940, the Prague Unitarian Church was under the surveillance of the Gestapo, the Nazi police. Reverend Capek and his Unitarian Church were not popular with the Nazis. Nazi court records state that Capek was too dangerous to the Reich for him to be allowed to live. In 1942, Norbert Capek was taken to Dachau concentration camp and died in the gas chambers. Reverend Capek was a good minister to the very end. He was a kind presence to those in the camp with him, and when he could, he wrote home letters of encouragement to Unitarians in Prague. We Unitarian Universalists, like so many other religious groups, have religious martyrs who died for their faith. We count Capek as one of our heroes, not because he died, but because he was willing to stand up for what was right and true, even if it meant he would be killed for doing so. Capek shows us an example of courage to speak the truth of love, even when faced with the threat of death. Capek's Flower Communion service has made a permanent difference in our faith. In 1939, Maya Capek, Norbert Capek's wife and a minister herself, brought the Flower Communion service to the United States. It has been celebrated in Unitarian churches all over the continent ever since. Norbert Capek may have died, but his touching ritual and his strong belief in affirming and celebrating the importance of everyone lives on today. Capek's message lives on in this very service as we celebrate our Flower Communion.
Alongside Unitarian Universalists across the world, we now kindle our chalice flame, another symbol from the period of the World War II era, when it was adopted as a symbol of safety for Unitarians who were helping those who needed to escape Europe. The symbol of the chalice was their emblem, so that people would know that these were people who would help despite the risk and against all odds. We kindle our chalice flame to represent the cup of community that holds us in every situation, and the inextinguishable flame of the human spirit that no one can kill or suppress. Let us light our chalice with the words of affirmation that are printed in your order of service. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now we will sing our first hymn, and it is a hymn that has the message of Flower Communion written all through the lyrics. And as we do sing, Jamila is going to, with a little help from a few recruited helpers, arrange our bouquets in the tradition of the flower ceremony and bring them to the front. And so for all of us, I invite you to rise or remain seated as you are most comfortable to join in singing hymn number 318, We Would Be One. conclude this time of prayer with the prayer that was written by Reverend Norbert Capek 100 years ago in 1923 to celebrate the first flower communion. This prayer was originally, of course, written in the Czech language, and we had hoped to share the current minister of the Unitarian Church in Prague delivering the prayer in both Czech and English. So I will be sharing that video on our Columbia UU's group later on so that you may experience the full Czech experience. But for now, will you join me in the spirit of prayer? Capek's words have been altered only very slightly to add a gender-inclusive term to each place where he used the binary language of his time. In the name of providence, which implants in the seed the future of the flower, and in our hearts the longing for people to live in harmony. In the name of the highest, in whom we move, and who makes the mother and father and parent, the brother and sister and sibling, the lover and loner what they are. In the name of sages and great religious leaders who sacrificed their lives to hasten the coming of the age of mutual respect, let us renew our resolution, sincerely to be real brothers and sisters and siblings, regardless of any kind of bar which estranges us from each other. In this holy resolve, may we be strengthened knowing that we are God's family, that one Spirit, the Spirit of love, unites us, and may we endeavor for a more perfect and more joyful life. Amen. We will now join in singing the hymn that you were humming with me during our Stones and Water, hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. I invite you to rise or remain seated as you are most comfortable and join me a cappella in singing this beautiful, beloved Unitarian Universalist hymn. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Please be seated. Yes. Thank you for the reminder from Jamila, who would like to invite any children who would like to help make some art while I give a brief reflection to the table in the back of the sanctuary where she will be making flower collages for our flower ceremony Sunday. This week, I sat in my small but burgeoning wildflower garden, thinking about the beauty of this century-old ritual that we share, and all that the flowers teach us about being gloriously and fabulously ourselves. The flowers, you see, are all very different, and they all need different things to blossom. Sweet William likes the shade and not too very much water. Cardinal flower is perfectly happy to sit in a puddle. and columbine are likely to spring up all over the place. There is no wrong way to be a flower when there are so many different kinds to grow in so much changing and varied ground. In front of our wildflower beds stretch yards and yards of one single kind of grass, which always needs mowing. And I cheer every time I see a run of wild violets or clover taking over a patch of that infernal grass yard, which I'm sure was planted long back in keeping with the dominant culture's preference for monoculture, some particular and limiting view of what is beautiful or right, what is easy to manage and keep under control with gas-powered spinning blades. Wildflowers, on the other hand, defy the colonial desire for control. They are free. They are weedy. They are unbound, difficult to rein in, and, well, wild. I have one sunny spot in my entire yard where the previous owners planted a vegetable patch. But I am a terrible gardener, which means that every year I plant a few veggie starts and then promptly forget about them. So since we've been in this house, that sunny spot every year becomes very, very wild. For a while, I was deeply ashamed of the 6-foot-tall grasses, and Lord knows what kind of plants. I certainly don't know. I was really ashamed of this overgrown patch of weeds that felt like my failure to control and cultivate the land. But then I noticed during our pandemic year, when I was mostly home and spent a lot of time looking out my window, I noticed that the birds and the butterflies and the bees and even the hummingbirds loved my tall, shameful weeds. They loved them. They were fed by them and nurtured, and they kept coming back again and again to this patch of tall, towering weeds. And so I stopped calling them weeds. And I stopped being ashamed of them. And now that spot is my native prairie. And I can see its true colors shining through. Of course, there are some plants that are truly invasive, most always ones that were transplanted here from another ecosystem, and those we sometimes need to weed out, because our freedom exists alongside other free bodies and cannot mean the freedom to dominate others. Choking kudzu cannot be left to spread wildly, just as we are not free to strike down anyone around us in our pursuit of happiness, or to control other bodies in the pursuit of our own vision for the world. Supremacy systems seek to control the vast and beautiful diversity of bodies in this world by punishing and even weeding out those who do not conform to their narrow definition of what is right or normal or beautiful. And my gosh, this year in Missouri have we seen those attempts to weed out beautiful, beloved human kin. Supremacy systems would like the world to be only one plant, all grass. Supremacy systems fear our gorgeous, free diversity. They fear the way we are wild like the flowers. So they seek to control our bodies. Our bodies, some of which need abortions. Our bodies, some of which need gender-affirming health care. Our bodies which need the love of other bodies, whether we are gay, straight, lesbian, bi, ace, queer, pan, demi, poly, or any other way of being a lover of the world. Our bodies which need respect for their wild and luscious array of sizes and shapes. Our bodies which need access to space and inclusion in 100 different changing ways over the course of our lives as our bodies change in their abilities. And so, amid systems that seek to control our bodies, Amid systems that would prefer a vast stretch of sameness, we come celebrating the 100th flower ceremony. And today, on the first Sunday of Pride Month and the 100th anniversary of the flower ceremony, we proclaim that there is no wrong way to bloom. There is no wrong way to be a body. We come celebrating each and every body and person in this room as an inherently dignified moral agent, connected to all the other bodies in this room, free and good. You deserve to be free, and you are good for no other reason than that you exist in this gorgeous interdependent web of life where all our true and varying colors shine through. You know, when I first encountered the flower ceremony that we celebrate today, I'll confess I thought it was sweet, but not that deep. Every passing year proves me wrong. It is very deep to look at this wild array of flowers, to look at this wild array of people, and count us each exactly right no matter what, and to observe the beauty they magnify in one another, the beauty we magnify in one another, exactly because of how we are different from each other. And of course, then every year I remember that Norbert Capek, who created this ritual, was later killed by the Nazis, because his gospel of inherent worth and dignity of every person, our faith, was deemed, as Nazi court records showed, too dangerous to the Reich for him to be allowed to live. As we heard in the story, Dr. Capek was sent in 1940 to Dachau, where he was killed the next year, but we know from his writings that even in the concentration camp, in the face of such horror, Capek's faith, his Unitarian faith, his hope for the world of wildflowers endured. Just before his death, he wrote these words in a letter to his daughter. He said, "It is worthwhile to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. Oh, blow ye evil winds into my body's fire, my soul you'll never unravel. Even though disappointed 1,000 times by fallen in the fight, and everything would worthless seem, I have lived amidst eternity. Be grateful, my soul. My life was worth living." Days before his death, he wrote these words, and they speak to us down the ages, in the moment we live in here, in the middle of Missouri, where legislators are seeking to weed out beautiful human diversity. It is worthwhile to live and fight courageously for sacred ideals. Oh, blow ye evil winds into my body's fire, my soul you will never unravel. Our faith in human goodness and bodies that are free will not be unraveled or controlled, because we are like the wildflowers, because we spring up uncontrollably and everywhere, because we know that each and every human person deserves to be free, and that we will all only get free together when even the most marginalized is free. Free to love, free to choose, free to grow and bloom, free to express their gender, free to live in their body fully. We are like the wildflowers, and we deserve to be free, and we deserve to be together, connected in all our beautiful difference, together finding our place to thrive, together making room for each and all, a great native prairie of humanity to which the bees and wildflowers and hummingbirds find their thriving. There is nothing shallow about that. Mary Oliver writes, "All day under the shifty wind, as in a dance to the great wedding, the flowers bend their bright bodies and tip their fragrance to the air and rise, their red stems holding all that dampness and recklessness, gladly and lightly, And there it is again, beauty the brave, the exemplary, blazing open. There are forces in this world that are very afraid of all that dampness, recklessness, gladness, and lightness. And that is why we must blaze open, showing the world fearlessly all of who we are, all the ways we refuse to be controlled and brought into line, all the ways we dance in the wind together in all our glorious difference. UU Church, you are Beauty the Brave, and the wider community around you is Beauty the Brave, and we are here to be wild and connected and free. We are here to blaze open so that there is space for everyone to blossom into the fullness and beauty of who each is. Let us bloom together, and Jamila is going to make us an invitation this morning into some fabulous blossoming before we share our flower ritual.
So, you may have all noticed that I enjoy dressing up. But I haven't always felt so free in my self-expression. But I love the possibility now of being who I am and showing it in what I wear, that each day is getting dressed as an art project. But I remember a turning point in my life. It wasn't until my 20s that I felt like I could be free in how I expressed myself. And I was at a thrift store, and I came across this pair of wild red brocade, tight red brocade pants. And I remember thinking, these are so cool, they'd be so great on someone else. And then I thought, what exactly am I so afraid of? And so I bought and rocked those red brocade pants, and it was a big turning point for me. I know that sharing your full, authentic self and having uninhibited self-expression can often be a lot more challenging than that, and a lot more dangerous. I hope that here, among this congregation, you have found a place where you know that your own unique beauty will be valued and celebrated. I am grateful for every bit of it you are willing to share. You are each works of art. And with each act of sharing your full, authentic selves and uninhibited self-expression, I hope you feel a sense of personal liberation in exploring the wholeness of yourself. But I think it's even more than that. I want to share a little story. Once when my son was 3, he noticed me putting on lipstick and asked me what I was doing. And I said, sometimes I like to make my lips fun colors. And he looked at me and looked at me, and he then asked, can anyone wear lipstick? And I said, yes. And I watched him staring at me intently a moment, and I could see him trying to make sense of the world that he lived in that was so big and wide and new to him, and he's trying to figure out the rules. And he said, and I could sense the question he was about to ask, and I prepared my answer, one that suddenly felt so important. But he surprised me with a slightly different question. He turned his intent gaze to my spouse, my big butch husband, Jack, standing nearby, and he said, can Daddy wear lipstick? And that is the story of how Jack wore lipstick for the first time. Embracing wild and free self-expression can be an act of personal liberation, but it is also an act of collective liberation. We reshape the parameters, we expand the perimeters of the space in which we are all searching for wholeness. So let's see how wild and free and joyful we can be together. We want to invite you, in whatever way feels joyful to you, to adorn yourself. We have scarves and hats and jewelry and makeup. My gigantic scarf collection is on loan. It's really, maybe a little too large of a collection. So we invite you into a time of wild and free and liberatory adornment.
And the princess has already rushed to the adornment station, but this is for all of us. And after a moment to discuss your choices with one another, we will enjoy an anthem from our guest cellist, Nathan Roberts, while we continue to adorn ourselves. Now, fabulously bedecked together, we reach the pinnacle of our flower ceremony service when we will consecrate and share the flowers that we have brought to this time and this place, using these century-old words of the Reverend Norbert Capek himself. Please join me in the words of flower consecration, which are reading number 724 in the back of your gray hymnal. Infinite Spirit, we ask thy blessing on these, thy messengers. In desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of the most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. We will now invite each of you to come forward in all your fabulous glory to choose a flower different than the one you brought to carry home with you. This is a community of great abundance, and there are enough flowers for everyone, whether you knew today was flower ceremony and brought a flower or not. So please, please come take a symbol of the beauty of our shared humanity home with you, whether you brought a flower or not. While you do, we were to play a video of a hymn called My Life is Made Worthwhile, written by Norbert Capek in the Dachau concentration camp. However, instead, I will be singing for you for the beauty of the earth. I invite you to come forward, take a flower, and receive the glorious, wild freedom of this community, that you may carry it forth with you into this world that so needs that freedom. You may now come forward. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our delight, for the mystic harmony brings sense to sound and sight, source of all to thee we raise. This our hymn of grateful praise, for the wonder of each hour, for the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all to thee we raise. This our hymn of grateful praise, for the joy of human care, sibling, cousin, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all to thee we raise. This our hymn of grateful praise, for the human family, people of all shapes and kind, colorful and sparkly, bringing forth their lovely minds, source of all to thee we raise. This our hymn of grateful praise. Amen. May these beautiful blooms remind you that it is no small thing to fully live the love that calls us in this world, that it makes a difference to the people around you, and that it makes your own life fuller and more worthy of this beautiful earth. Now, every week, we are invited into a time of gratitude and generosity to practice our deep spiritual value of stewardship, caring for our community by sharing our gifts with one another. Your contributions this morning will be our Share the Plate with the Centro Latino, which is our monthly recipient this week, or this month. If you prefer to give online or by text, please see your order of service for details as we now hear a word from Ali Gassman about the work that our offerings this morning will help to fund.
Good morning. I'm Ali Gassman. I am a member of the Social Action Team. I don't know what age I am. I don't know how to describe it. So I'm just going to say I'm 60 years old, and I have brown, various hues, including gray hair, and I'm wearing a blue and green speckled blouse with matching rims of my glasses and earrings. I'm here today to talk to you about the Centro Latino. The Centro Latino is an integral part of our community here in Columbia. and offers many valuable services at no cost or very low cost. Let me tell you about some of the services they offer. They have an after-school program where school-aged kids come to the Centro to receive tutoring, where they have computer and internet access and get tutoring, homework help. And so Hispanic kids are much more likely to drop out of school than African American or white or Asian Pacific Islander children. Obviously, with parents, Hispanic kids wouldn't be the only ones who have this issue, but I know myself working in the Hispanic community that it's really hard for parents to help their kids if they don't speak English. So the Central Latino is a very valuable place for kids to get help and do better in school and are more likely to stay in school and not drop out. Having said all that, it is not just Latino kids who get helped in the Central Latino. All kinds of kids come to their after-school program. They also offer a summer day camp for school-aged kids after the Columbia Public Schools summer school has ended. Their focus there is on continued learning, exercise, and healthy nutrition. They have a Promotores de la Salud program where these promotores help Hispanic families navigate the healthcare system. They do HIV education and prevention, translated visits, help set up appointments, and many other things. They also offer health classes, focus on diabetes, again, focus on healthy nutrition. Part of that is their Comedor Popular, their people's kitchen, to offer wellness and obesity prevention programs, dietary consultation, and cooking classes. They connect Colombians to local produce and gardening and prepare healthy plant-based meals for the public. They offer English and Spanish classes for adults, and they have a legal access program where they connect migrants from any country to legal services. They have a violence prevention program working with especially Hispanic boys and young men. And in addition, Central Latino is continually training interns and works in conjunction with many other organizations, including the Cambio Center at the University of Missouri, the Missouri Foundation for Health, and Local Motion. Thank you so much for your donation to the Central Latino, which really has been making a big, huge difference in our community for over 20 years now, 23 years. So, thank you.